My uncle urged me to peer through the gap in the stairs. My 4-year-old niece tugged at my sleeve as I hesitated. In front of me lay my husband, unconscious and still on a hospital bed. A week ago, he had been stabbed during a confrontation with a burglar who was still on the run. Upon returning home, my niece's peculiar words echoed in my mind. I decided to check the stairs, and there, in a tiny crevice, I found something bloodied. A shiver ran down my spine in surprise. Could it be someone unexpectedly familiar, possibly the culprit? Fear gripped me. I work in administration at a real estate agency. Last year, I tied the knot with Michael, one of our salesmen, after an office romance. Both of us are 25 years old, and our shared motto was, "We want kids soon." The reason behind this was my sister, and her child Emma, who is incredibly adorable. Whenever I see my 4-year-old niece giggling or pouting, I imagine ourselves as parents. Little Emma possesses a mysterious ability. Aunt Sophia, your ring is on the bookshelf. Whenever I misplaced something, my niece would pinpoint its location, not just once but repeatedly. Even my sister said, when in trouble, ask Emma. Somehow, good things happen. Children are said to see ghosts, but I wonder if there's something more to it. Perhaps our future child will also have special abilities. We dreamt of a family with children. However, our newlywed life didn't go smoothly. Shortly after getting married, we started receiving disturbing letters at home addressed to Michael. The words written on them were chilling: break up and disappear. Despite Michael dismissing it as a malicious prank and filing a police report, the identity of the letter sender remained unknown. Our days were filled with anxiety. One day, James, Michael's colleague, visited the General Affairs Department where I worked. It was unusual for someone from the sales department to visit me. When I approached James, he handed me a piece of paper with the same threatening words, "disappear" and "Esser" scribbled on it. I gasped, and James looked serious. As a rising star in the sales department, Michael had made enemies, and it was troubling. James crumpled the paper in his hand and said, "I've known Michael since we joined the company. If anything happens, feel free to consult with me." He smiled kindly, offering support in the face of the mysterious threats we were facing. I never anticipated finding Michael in such a dire situation, but having an ally is reassuring. My sister also visited our home, concerned about us despite the unsettling letters. With support from those around us, we stood strong, determined not to let the harassment defeat us. I resolved to stand by Michael. Little did we know what was about to happen. My sister called me in a panic, urging me to come back immediately. It was a Saturday, and Michael, who was supposed to be home after working overtime, was unconscious. I received her call while attending a friend's wedding. Rushing to the hospital, I found Michael lying pale-faced on the bed. I pleaded with him to wake up, gripping his hand, but he remained motionless. The room echoed with the rhythmic beeping of machines, and tears streamed down my face. I wondered why this was happening. My sister, who had been waiting in the room, comforted me. According to the police, our neighbor had discovered Michael collapsed at home with a stab wound. The neighbor had come to deliver a community newsletter and, as usual, opened our front door without hesitation. Fortunately, this act led to the early discovery of my husband. Given the recent spate of burglaries in the neighborhood, the police suspected it might be the work of the burglar. I believed it was the same person who sent those threatening letters. I fervently explained this to my sister, but she interrupted, insisting that she would handle the explanation to the police. She advised me to take a break. I lamented, thinking that if only I hadn't gone to that wedding, maybe Michael would be safe. I prayed for his recovery, but even after a week, he remained unconscious. The perpetrator was still at large. In the hospital room, I spoke to my husband, connected to numerous tubes. There was no response. No matter how hard I tried to hold back tears, they flowed uncontrollably. It was challenging to stay positive, even when people encouraged me to. Turning around, I found James, who had been checking on Michael every day, offering flowers and treats to comfort me. I apologized for showing him such an embarrassing sight. I hastily wiped away my tears, but James leaned in and reassured me, "Don't worry about it. Just then, an innocent voice came from behind. Aunt Sophia, who's this? I looked back, and my niece Emma stood there, tilting her head curiously. It was her first time visiting. Oh, come on, my sister said curtly to Emma and then greeted James. I apologize for intruding on your family. Well, I'll leave you all to it. With a brief nod to my sister, James placed the flowers down and left the room. Sorry for the sudden visit. Emma insisted on coming to see Michael. My sister looked apologetic, but Emma paid no attention. She stood by the bed, staring intently at Michael's face. Uncle is saying, look into the gap in the stairs. A barge is there. My niece suddenly blurted out, a mysterious statement from behind. A barge? You mean those large ships that transport goods at the harbor? And it's under the stairs. However, my sister insisted that Emma might have something important to say. She was dead serious. As we continued visiting, hours at the hospital passed, and my sister drove me home. Before parting ways, she said, call me if anything happens. But seriously, was there really a gap under the stairs? I retraced my memories, unlocked the front door, and headed toward the staircase. During the incident, Michael had been found collapsed on the stairs, covered in blood. The police had collected evidence and cleaned up. Everything was already in pristine condition. There's a gap at the edge of the bottom step. I noticed a faint trace of red blood. I shone my flashlight inside and saw something reflecting, glinting in the light. I quickly grabbed some tweezers and pulled it out. It turned out to be something unexpected. Isn't this a company badge? In our company, everyone wears a badge with a company logo as an employee ID. The familiar badge was dried and stained with a significant amount of blood. It must have been squeezed into the gap because of the blood. Come to think of it, the police mentioned an unnatural scratch on Michael's fingertip. Could he have pushed something into the gap? The hidden company badge might be a message from Michael, indicating who the culprit is. I immediately called my sister. See, something was found after all. Let's go together to report it to the police, I suggested as my sister bustled around on the other end of the phone. I heard my niece's voice. If there's no barge, you need later. It's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance. What another riddle is this? Another clue related to the case? I leaned forward, asking, but all I heard from the phone was Emma's giggles. Emma had accurately guessed something about the space under the stairs, and I suspected this riddle held a clue to the perpetrator. I stared at the blood-stained company badge in my palm. Michael must have left a crucial clue in his desperate struggle, enduring immense pain until he lost consciousness. I won't let Michael's message go to waste. I'll catch the criminal. I vowed to uncover the cowardly perpetrator and seek revenge. Later, I promptly delivered the badge to the police and went to visit my niece. If there's no barge, you need later. It's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance. Emma's words intrigued me. I asked her for more details. Hey Emma, what does it mean when you say I need a barge later? Is it too late? Emma shook her head. No, not like that. I'm still puzzled. When you say it's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance, are you talking about the number of people? Would 2 people be less of a nuisance? No, that's still too many. It's about being bothersome. My niece wore a smug expression, but the mystery only deepened. I had no idea what she was talking about, and I let out a groan. My sister, equally puzzled, hemmed. There must be some meaning to it. Despite her uncertainty, I decided to leave her house and head to a cafe to clear my thoughts. As I sipped my coffee and pondered, a man in a suit sitting at the adjacent table stood up, leaving his smartphone behind. Excuse me, you've forgotten your phone, I called out. He hurried back, relieved, and replied, thank you. It's my work phone, and losing it would mean writing an incident report. At that moment, something clicked in my mind. Finally, the answer to the riddle became clear. I dashed back to my workplace. What followed was a whirlwind of events that revealed the truth. 5 days later, I found myself in a hospital room with my unconscious husband. It's been a while. Why did you take 5 days off work? He asked, stirring from his slumber. I didn't see you at the hospital either. I was worried, James said during his visit, ignoring the bouquet he offered. I looked him straight in the eyes and quietly asked, despite being so close to my husband, why did you stab him? James's face turned pale at my sudden accusation. What are you talking about? Isn't the culprit a burglar? He smiled kindly as always, trying to play it off. I took the blood-stained company badge I found under the stairs out of my pocket and showed it to him. Is that our company's badge? The Lear my niece mentioned wasn't a ship at the harbor. It referred to the company badge. We've been receiving harassing letters at home, and my husband hid the company badge to reveal the culprit. The culprit isn't a burglar. It's someone close within the company, I said, looking at James with conviction. You're not seriously suspecting me, are you? After all I've done to care for you. He reached for my hand with a strained smile. I pushed away his hand and showed him a copy of his disciplinary report that I found in HR. Emma's statement about needing a barge later meant needing the letter of apology to the company because he lost his badge. 2 days after my husband was stabbed, he wrote the incident report. Could that be Michael's company badge? His badge was properly at home. I swiftly dismissed his feeble excuse. James clenched his lips in frustration, but he wasn't giving up. You're shaken because of Michael's stabbing. From now on, I'll be there for you in Michael's place. His unfocused eyes drew closer. I deftly sidestepped him and pulled out documents from my bag. It was the drive recorder data from the company car he always used. You came to our place at the time of the incident, even though there are no business partners nearby, right? As the data manager for the company's drive recorders, I quickly analyzed James's movements during the incident. Perhaps he had considered erasing the data later, but the company car's recorder was locked to prevent unauthorized tampering. Did you have feelings for me? I asked, watching James squirm. After questioning other colleagues, it became clear that James had secretly harbored feelings for me all along. Furthermore, it was revealed that James resented Michael for supposedly stealing me away from him. Emma's riddle. It's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance. Meant that if someone already had a spouse, Michael's presence would be an obstacle to their marriage. You held a grudge and harassed us, fearing we might get divorced. That's disgusting. James clenched his fists in anger at my use of the word disgusting. I liked you much more than Michael ever did. I thought scaring you would lead to a breakup. He stomped his feet in frustration. Since the letters alone weren't effective, I decided to put a weapon in your mailbox. I thought it would wake you up in fear. Unfortunately for him, Michael unexpectedly returned home earlier than planned and caught James in the act of pulling out the knife. James's stomping intensified as he arrogantly accused me of being the culprit. Do you realize how terrified Sophia is? He warned me never to come near his wife again. So, in your anger, you've used the knife you were holding to stab my husband. Yeah, that's right. It was all for you. Now I just need to finish him off. James defiantly rushed toward the bed, attempting to strangle Michael. Desperate to protect my husband, I grappled with James. Then, unexpectedly, Michael's weak voice cut through the chaos. Enough already. James froze momentarily at the unexpected interruption, seizing the opportunity. I pushed James with all my strength, and he crashed into the door with a loud thud. The curtain he grabbed tore apart, and the hospital staff rushed in, alarmed by the strange noise echoing through the halls. Call the police? I shouted. The staff gathered around, helping restrain James and making emergency calls. Later, when the police arrived, and I explained everything, they took James into custody. He cried out in desperation. We were so close to being happy. What nonsense are you spouting? There was never any chance of happiness for you. I stared at James, pushing him away with a resolute tone. I've loved you all along. I really have. James continued to sob like a child, but his selfish claims held no sway. The only person I love is my husband. Stay away from me forever. I told him sternly. As James was led away by the police, he muttered. Later, Michael regained consciousness and testified against James, leading to his conviction. James would spend about 7 years behind bars. Michael demanded $115,000 in compensation. Even if James were released, losing his job would likely cause financial hardship. As for me today, I invited my sister and Emma over for lunch with Michael. As we sat around the table, my niece grinned and said, "The new chair isn't just one, it's two." My husband and I exchanged glances. It seems I'm pregnant with twins. I'll need to visit the obstetrician soon. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time.